Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are tracking snow across the Midwest and across the New England states today. That's really the big story this afternoon, is going to be that snowfall that's continuing across some of those lakes across the New England states. And then, of course, the cold weather. Did you guys feel that cold weather, that chill whenever you hopped out the door earlier? Whenever you headed to work, you were like, oh no, I need a jacket. That hit most of the U.S. yesterday, but we're going to continue to see that chill over the next few days as well. And it looks like it's a Monday because classically my clicker is not clicking. So let's try this one more time. All right, there we go. We've got some movement on the screen. Chicago, an early November blizzard. Yes, we saw those heavy snowfall totals this morning. We're going to talk about exact totals here in just a few minutes. Freeze warning for millions of people across the U.S. A lot of those people feeling their first freeze of the season. And so you're pulling out your jackets. You're saying, where did I put that from last year? It's very cold out there. And we'll talk about some of your fire weather concerns as well. Let's start with what we saw this weekend, and then we'll go into what we see this week. Now, you can see that we did see a few hail reports across the central portion of Tennessee this weekend. On Friday, we saw those late on Friday night, and then we actually had some large hail down in Texas on Saturday, so that was also very impressive, just outside of Houston, closer down to like the south of Houston there. So that's what we saw this weekend. Then we turned from severe weather to snow, and that's what we're talking about right now. So we've got all of that snow that's sitting across the Midwest, all the way down into places like Kentucky, Tennessee, and then up into our New England states right now. All of this thanks to a cold pressure, a cold system that is coming down from Canada and making the rest of us who's not getting snow feel that wintry chill. Let's go ahead and talk about exactly how cold is it out there. How cold did we get this morning? Did you guys know up in the northern portion of the plains, your feel-like temperature was in the single digits? We got 9 degrees for that wind chill. Right now, a lot of us still sitting slightly below freezing here. 28 degrees in Fort Wayne, 31 in Minneapolis. So anything that falls in these areas will be in the form of snow. A little bit warmer, but still cold, I can tell you that. 44 in Oklahoma City. And oh, Denver, one of the nicest temperatures that we have on the map, 65 degrees. Now, one thing that I think is pretty cool is that you can actually see the snow that fell from space. So this is our satellite view. Our satellite views the Earth up in space, and so what do we see? Well, all of these moving gray areas right here, these are clouds. But do you see these stationary white areas? Let's zoom in, actually. You see that right there? Stationary, but a little bit lighter shade of white. That's the snow that you can actually see reflected up in space. So we've got a lot of snow covering the ground here. You've got that all the way up to South Bend. There you go. I've highlighted it for you so you can see it a little bit clearer. I know some of the clouds are blocking your view here, but I do think that this is a phenomenal view. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what we've seen over the past 24 hours. We've seen lake effect snow, and I'm actually going to explain this with meteorologist Michaela Smith. Michaela, explain what exactly is lake effect snow, who has seen it, what does this mean for people across the Midwest?
Yeah, we usually start to see this lake effect snow. Usually it's like late fall, early winter. The big change with that is because the warmer water, even though it's getting colder, water is going to retain that heat a little bit longer. And so when really cold air passes over, exactly like what we saw this weekend, it actually moves over that warmer water still. Warm water brings some moisture back up into the atmosphere. So then if you're on the south side, in this case, we'll talk about Chicago here in just a second, or a lot of times it's to the east side of these Great Lakes, especially where there is so much water that they can kind of grab that moisture from. You get some pretty heavy bands of snow. So
it's all that warm water. Okay, well, I'm going to step out of the way here and let you explain that. We've got some great graphics for you guys.
Yeah, so it's really cool to kind of see this phenomenon. Again, it's really late fall, kind of mid-fall too, and then early into the winter, because you can see this is quote unquote warm water. We're talking about even in the water can be right around freezing. As long as it's warmer than the land, then as that air moves over, even if it's real cold air, just like we saw, we had a very cold Arctic mass that pushed across the area. It's still impacting people in the deep south right now. But when that went over the lakes, the lake was a little bit warmer compared to the land, so we started to see some of that moisture returning back into the clouds. Eventually that's going to condense. Once it falls back onto land, it kind of pushes that out, and that's how we end up seeing snow. So here's what happens. Cold air moves over the surface of that water, and then if you're on the other side, so in this case like Chicago, they were on the south side, that's where those winds are coming through, or a lot of times if you're on the eastern side of a lake, that's when you'll really start to see just heavy bands of snow. The very interesting thing though with lake effect snow is these are very narrow bands. So sometimes you can be talking about just a couple miles make all the difference in the world. We're also going to show you that in just a second. So again, that's kind of how lake effect snow sets up, is it comes off of the lake. And this doesn't have to be huge Great Lakes. Here in Oklahoma, currently when I used to work in Tulsa, we even had a few lakes that you could see just that colder air moving across that would actually cause lake effect snow. Question, where do you think the next tropical cyclone make landfall? You know, we're gonna have some time to talk about maybe the tropics at the end. So far, not expecting anything else right now. So really the thing that we're dealing with is snowfall currently across the U.S. Here's a look at these snow totals over the last 24 hours. We'll show you a little bit closer to areas like Chicago because again, that's where we've been talking about some of this lake effect snow. And even though Chicago did see quite a bit of snow, you can see these 24-hour snow totals between 4-6 inches. I want to highlight a few other areas. You can see just directly to the south how skinny these little areas are. That's again those bands, wherever those bands decide to set up for this lake effect snow, it's not going to be very wide, but they're skinny, very heavy snowfall. So you can see Cedar Creek, St. John, even Valpo was kind of between two of these heavier snow bands, but some of these snow bands you talked about 10, 12 inches of snow. More snow though, not just by the Great Lakes. We had more to the south, parts of Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky. You saw some snowfall too. And then you can also see some lake effect snow more on the east side. So like we talked about, it's usually the south or the east side of the Great Lakes. So areas like Buffalo, you even had some lake effect snow. Rochester, New York, you may have seen some of this too. So pretty cool phenomenon. Taylor's going to come back into. We talk about some of these totals that we saw from this lake effect snow this weekend. And you can see even just here with these totals behind us, how different it was. I mean, talk about
what do we have here? 12 inches? Holy moly.
That's so much snowfall.
That's a ton, especially in November. You know, oftentimes we'll see that a little bit later in the season, but that's a lot of snow. So 12 inches in Momence, Illinois.
And it was like, you know, less than 24 hours. Usually a lot of the snow fell within like 12 hours or even less than that. And that's the huge thing with lake effect snow too, is when you get it, it is just so heavy, it's all consuming. Like you can't see, a lot of times they're described as like whiteout conditions. So it's very similar to a blizzard because winds increase, you see all this snowfall. And so you get these narrow bands, but where you see the heavy snowfall, it just racks up so quickly.
It may not be everyone who sees it, but where you get it, you know, you get the high wind, you get so much snow all at one time. It lowers that visibility. It makes travel conditions very, very dangerous. So I'm grateful that a lot of this came in overnight while most people were at home, but I know that morning commute was really tough for a lot of people today.
Yeah, we saw a lot of those reports in Chicago. People were being just like, hey, stay home if you can. I mean, even you look at Chicago, like Chicago proper itself had 3.5 inches, but then the airport was less than 2. So just in Chicago itself, we even looked at Midway Airport too, and it was sitting between about 2 inches. So just even across Chicago, there was difference in snowfall totals because again, it's where those heavier bands set up, which is really cool. Taylor's actually going to show you a little bit more in depth though, how this works, because again, lake effect snow kind of creates its own little weather system in a way. So it's really being driven from the water and then wherever they get that moisture, they get all the snow.
And it's not everyone. You know, I think that that was a conversation over the weekend because the National Weather Service, they were saying 1 to 15 inches of snow. Now that's a very, very big difference. 1 inch of snow, that's not going to make a big travel issue. It's going to be fine. 15 inches, now that's a whole different story. And so that's what they were saying, and a lot of people were confused by that range. And we'll show you exactly why they were saying that here. I'm actually going to zoom down into a place, not Chicago, just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. You can see in this area, what we're watching for here is we've got a lot of snow coming in this afternoon. Now it's this band that Michaela explained. It's this band of cold air that is going over the lake. It's going to take all of that moisture from the lake and it's going to dump it into this area. And you can see just how much snow we get very, very fast. So over about 12 inches of snow in one area. However, if you move about 15 miles, less than 15 miles, you have less than 2 inches of snow. That is why we see such a big range sometimes in what we expect our snowfall accumulation to be. Is it going to be 10 inches? or is it going to be 2 inches? Now, I will tell you, it's very, very difficult to say where exactly this band of snow will line up. Will it be here, or will it be 15 miles to the north in Edinburgh? You know, you just do not know until it starts to happen, and that's why we have oftentimes that uncertainty with these snowfall totals. Now let's go ahead and check the watches and warnings as well, because we are still expecting more snow across the Midwest. We have another round coming later on tonight and into early tomorrow morning. We have a winter storm warning right now up in Michigan. We've got winter weather advisories, however, ongoing across the Midwest and across places like Kentucky, Tennessee, all the way up into the Carolinas and into West Virginia as well. Other places that are not getting that snow are getting those freeze warnings, so temperatures right about freezing in these areas, not only early this morning, but also overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning as well. A lot of these places highlighted here in purple very rarely get temperatures in the 30s, below freezing. So it is pretty significant that we're getting this so early on. As we move into severe weather here, no hail expected for today. It's winter weather. That is what we're talking about today. Let's go ahead and talk about timeline for future snowfall totals as well. What we're watching for here is all of that snow out in the Midwest moving off the East Coast, or at least into North Carolina later on today. We're going to zoom down and talk about each of these little areas in particular. So put your location in the comments. Where do you guys want us to talk about? When we can get to those exact areas, we can tailor this forecast to where you're watching from. Here's a look at that snow that's moving through right now and into the evening hours from Virginia all the way down to Kentucky, Tennessee. We've also got North Carolina and West Virginia in here as well. You can see that that snow is going to continue through the overnight hours, but really start to wrap up by early tomorrow morning. Similar story here, where we're watching for lake effect snow continue in New York to Pennsylvania until early tomorrow morning. And then let's go ahead and check on Chicago as well, because Chicago, you are not done with that snow yet. You have another round for snow later on tonight and into tomorrow morning. So let's go ahead. It's this right here. I know it says it's coming in as rain. Let's watch this one more time and you'll see that it will come in as snow. So one more time here. There you go. Okay, so this is this evening. We still have that snow moving through places like Fort Wayne. We've got another band, however, that's moving up from Wisconsin and then all the way in to Chicago. I don't think this is going to bring you a ton of additional snow, but it could create those travel conditions as we were talking about earlier, potentially whiteout conditions with this as well as this goes through late tonight and early tomorrow morning. Back to severe weather here. We are not expecting anything significant over the next few days. Honestly, the rest of the week, your severe weather is going to stay pretty minimal. I think that by the time we get to this weekend, we could have another round for strong to severe storms. So we're talking Saturday and Sunday. That's where I'd keep an eye on. Also out to the west, we're not expecting a ton of rain over the next few days either. This is going to increase the fire conditions out here until we get to the end of this week and we finally start to see another system coming through California. That's going to increase the rainfall on the western side of California. Now let's go ahead and talk about your tropical outlook. As meteorologist Michaela Smith mentioned earlier, no tropical cyclone is expected to form within the next 7 days. Now we are nearing the end of hurricane season. Hurricane season ends on November 30th, and it does look like we're going to have a quiet end to hurricane season. Now that was different from what we saw last year. Last year we saw several more named storms in November. However, we do not expect that this year. You can see that over the next 7 days, we are not expecting anything significant. What is significant is this cold weather. I mean, there's a great divide. Remember whenever I said that Denver was in the mid-60s earlier, but then the rest of the country is just so cold. Temperatures are below freezing for a good portion of the U.S. today, obviously below average for this time of the year, colder than average for everyone highlighted there in purple. It will warm back up, however. How long will this snow stay around? Not for too long. I'm not too worried about that snowfall total, the snowfall accumulations sticking around for too long. Temperatures will warm back up, and that is what's going to help to increase the severe weather activity later on this week. So I'm talking late this week, maybe Friday, but most likely this weekend, most likely Saturday or Sunday. So there you go. That's what we're going to have to watch for, is this big divide between that colder air moving in and that warm air moving out. But if you're done with your jackets, you're saying, I don't want to put on that heavy winter coat, well, you may have to today. But tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, you may be able to leave that at home. Let's go ahead and talk about those future temperatures one more time. Looking ahead to tomorrow morning, what we're watching for here is a lot of people dropping back down to right about freezing. So we're talking about 39 in Memphis, 37 in Birmingham, 34 in St. Louis. We've also got the 60s that are trying to creep back in by tomorrow afternoon around the central portion of the U.S., and then a lot more people seeing those 60s return as we head into the later portion of the week. Taking a long-term outlook here, what we're watching for is a pretty dry next few days. I'm really not expecting a ton of wet weather across places like Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, anything across the West Coast. Not expecting wet weather over there either. There's your second round of snow showers late tonight and into tomorrow morning. But then we start to warm back up. So as we head into the middle of this month, November 15th through the 19th, it looks like temperatures are well above average across most of the U.S. So this cold, it's not sticking around for too long. Actually, what we're going to see are temperatures go down. That's where we're at right now. And then back up, and then back down, and then back up. And that's very typical for fall. Fall and spring are transitional months, which means that we stay on that roller coaster of warm then cold temperatures. Moving on here, what about your wet weather? Well, it looks like while things may be dry for most of us right now, other than that winter weather, it will return to that more active wet pattern by the middle of this month. So it looks like we're going to see a lot more activity, especially down in the southern portion of the U.S., which is what I was alluding to earlier. By the end of this week and early next week, we could see more of that activity. And before we wrap up here, I do want to do something that I forgot to do earlier. Let's go ahead and take a look outside in Chicago. Here you go. So I want to check on road conditions in Chicago right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Hang on one second so I can get my map up. And you guys, put where you're watching from in the comments section. All right, we've got some pretty good road conditions. Now this is an area that got some of the most snow. It looks like we've got a slowdown on the right side of the screen. However, we've got some pretty good road conditions on the left side of the screen. Let's show this right here. But hey, you can see all of that snow on the side where you can see some more of those grassy areas. We absolutely have that snowfall accumulation, and it looks pretty thick in some of these areas. All right, let's go ahead and go back to our map here. So we do have some slowdowns in these areas that Michaela was talking about earlier that got the most snow. However, if you go up to Chicago, where they only got 2, maybe 3 inches of snow in this area, conditions are pretty good. Let's go ahead and take a live look at this camera right here. Oh yeah, it looks great out there. I mean, it's a gorgeous view right here where we have snow covering the grassy areas. It may be a wet walk out to maybe walk the dog today. You're gonna have to clean out their paws as well because it may be a bit muddy out there as the snow starts to melt with the sunshine coming out at the moment. However, it does look like snowplows, they did their job and all of this snow melted off the roadways. As always, make sure that you're watching your neighborhood roads because those conditions are going to be a lot worse in the side streets and in the neighborhood areas. We, of course, will be keeping an eye on this snowfall as we head into the next 24 hours as Chicago is expected to get another round, not as intense as what we saw early this morning, but we're still expecting another round of snow later on tonight and into early tomorrow morning. And there you go. There's your forecast today. Thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox. You heard from meteorologist Michaela Smith earlier as well. We'll be posting more about the snowfall totals. We'll be posting more about the weather for the rest of your work week on our social media, so make sure that you follow us on there. Give us a follow on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, or give us a call if you're interested in a hail, wind, or tornado map. You know, while we are in this nicer weather, it's cold out there, but it's dry for most. While it is a lot nicer out there, you can go back and rework old storms that maybe you missed back in the spring. Well, we can get you set up with the exact location of those storms. Give us a call at 855-334-4245 or email us at info@hailtrace.com. Head over to our website, hailtrace.com. All right, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you back here, same time, same place.